Hello, time for my devotional. Hope you're having a good day. Here we are on Friday, the weekend just before us, so we're just gonna press through a little more, and then you get a break. Anyways, we're going to be looking at our verse today. It's in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 27, and we won't look at the context as much today. I want to just focus on this little image that's put up here, and so I'm just going to read it. And now the context is important. So the context is just about learning to follow God's ways and learning to obey the instructions of God and so on, and to avoid temptation. But let's just read this image. It says in verse 27, it says, "Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned?" Now it's a rhetorical question. It implies its own answer. Of course he can't, right? If you're going to take fire in your bosom is a way of saying, to put it in your shirt, right? Like we might say, put it in your pocket or something like that. If you take fire, a stick of fire from a campfire, and you put it in your pocket, can you do that and the clothes not be burned? Well, of course not. It can't happen. And so the point here, of course, is in a similar way, you can't, flirt with you can't tempt yourself or flirt with sins. Allow temptation to have its way in your life. You can't just sort of sin. If you're going to do this, you're putting fire in your pocket, and it's going to burn your clothes. You can't expect that not to happen, and that's the point here. It's just a natural thing. You can't have it both ways. But it's amazing how often we as human beings, we kind of act like we think we can have it both ways with so many things in life. We think that we can, spend money on all the things we want and yet still have money left over for an emergency, or we can live beyond our means, and yet it'll still be, we'll have what we need for our living. Well, you won't. And whatever it is, I can ignore someone and yet they'll still like me. Well, it's weird how we have these kind of things in our life, and there's all kinds of them where we think we can have it both ways, or as the old English proverb goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And yet so often we're like that, aren't we? We think I can have my cake, and if I eat it, I can still have my cake. You can't. It's one or the other. You either eat it and you don't have it anymore, or you have it but you can't eat it. And so it's just that kind of thing. It's a weird thing about us, but we do that a lot. And with the areas of sin and foolishness, we think that we can have it both ways, and we really can't. You can't act foolishly and expect a wise outcome. It can't be both. If you're going to act recklessly and foolishly, then you're going to get reckless and foolish outcomes. You're not going to get wise outcomes. It's not going to somehow just turn around and be so wise. It's not going to happen. You can't disregard God's moral law and expect that you're going to end up with a moral world, right? So our society, for instance, which is as fast as it can, seems to be rejecting all things moral. And well, you can't do that and end up with a moral society. It doesn't work that way. You'll end up with an immoral society and all that goes with that, And so that's a thing. You can't give in to temptation in the context of this proverb. You can't give in to temptation and expect to end up having a pure world. Your world isn't going to be pure and good because you've given in to the temptation. So it's not going to end up well for you. But we do that. We think that, oh yeah, somehow the rule of life won't affect me. I'll be the one that gets away with it, or whatever. And we act like we can put fire in our pocket and it won't burn our clothes. Or very specifically to the Proverbs we're in, where it's talking about adultery. You can't steal another man's wife and expect it to end up happy for you. It's not going to be happy. You're not going to have it's not going to go good for you. And that's the point here. For that matter, you can't cheat. You can't enter into a relationship with somebody that's cheating on their husband and not expect them to someday cheat on you. There's fire and you put it in your pocket, it's going to burn your clothes. And that's the idea here. You can't live in sin and expect eternal life. So why do we do that? Why do we find it so easy to convince ourselves that we can play with fire and not get burnt? I think there's a couple reasons. I'm going to give you real quickly. I'm going to give you four that I've got for today. I think one of the reasons is because we trust our own hearts, and by that I mean our emotions. We feel things and we trust our feelings and we go with them, and we've been trained to. In our society, we train young people to just follow their feelings, and we trust them as if somehow they are intrinsically wise and good, but they're not. They're fickle, and as it says in the Bible in Jeremiah, that the heart is desperately wicked. It's sick, and it uses that term, sick. And we don't understand that about ourselves, is that our emotions are not healthy by themselves. They have to be trained. And yeah, but we trust them all the time. So if I feel this is good, as that song says, if it feels this good, how can it be wrong? Or says it some more poetic way, I'm sure. But at any rate, that's the idea. We go, well, if I feel this, then it must be good. And well, no, you gotta manage your emotions. Don't let them manage you. But when we do let them rule, we fall for this kind of thing all the time. We oh, the fire, it's so pretty, it's so warm, it's so nice. I'm going to put that in my pocket. And oh, how come I got burnt? Right? Well, you trusted your emotions when you shouldn't have. You got to learn to lead them and train them. So that's one. Number two, we think satisfying our desires creates happiness, and so this is a real thing. We really think that if I satisfy whatever appetite I have, that will make me happy. And that's just a falsehood. It's not true. Now, it can be true that an unsatisfied appetite can make you feel unhappy. That's true. If you're hungry, you're not going to be necessarily terribly happy. But being full isn't necessarily going to make you feel happy either. And it's a mistake. It's a category mistake. Where our happiness is not based on appetites fed, because you can feed an appetite improperly and make yourself sick, and that's not going to make you happy. You have to eat the right food and in the right quantities and at the right times and so on. And so what we do though is we decide that whatever appetite, whether it be for food or for sex or for relationship or for affirmation or for whatever, we think we just satisfy that hunger, that appetite in whatever way I want to, then I'll have happiness. But you're putting fire in your pocket, you're getting burned. Fire has a place and it's not in your pocket. It's in the fireplace. That's where it should be. So that's number two. Number three, we're very good at lying to ourselves. The Bible talks about this as having a darkened understanding or a darkened heart. That we're very good as humans at blocking out truth when it doesn't coincide with our the things we want to believe. And so if the two are at odds, we are really good at deciding that the thing I want to believe is true and just ignoring all the things that are actually true. And we're really good at this. And it's all because, once again, these other things, because we want to satisfy our emotions, we want to satisfy our appetites. But because of that, we are really good at rationalizing. That's another term for the same idea. We darken our own minds on things. We prevent ourselves from seeing clearly. We bias ourselves. And that's a problem. And learning to not do that is part of what the wisdom of Proverbs is teaching us. Think about God's commands and hold them tight to your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge God, and then He'll direct your path. Proverbs. That's the idea. But we're so prone to saying, well, I will lean on my own understanding, my own dark and self-deceptive understanding. So it gets us in trouble. And finally, the last one is that we sometimes think wisdom is inherited rather than earned. We think that we're wise just because we have a reason for things or because we've thought about something or whatever. And then we kind of convince ourselves that I have wisdom, that I inherited wisdom. I just have it instinctually, instead of realizing that wisdom is something that's earned. You have to work at it. You have to ask God for it. You have to take the steps of disciplining yourself and learning what is wise and what is not wise. It takes effort to become wise. When we just think we inherited wisdom, what we're really doing is we're just running on instinct and calling it wisdom. But your instincts are not wise. They're not. Once again, our world teaches you follow your instincts. Well, no, don't do that. Your instincts are not reliable. Your instincts are there for emergency situations, like should I run from this bear or not? But they're not there for you to deciding whether or not you should have an affair with your neighbor's wife. That's not what your instincts are for at all. And if you follow your instincts, you're going to go bad. Wisdom is earned. It's not instinctual. It's not inherited. And because we don't know that, we fall into traps all the time. You've got to do the work. of growing in wisdom. So that's today's proverb. Can a man take fire into his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Well, no, you can't. Anyways, God help us to be wise. And God willing, we'll be back on Tuesday for verse 28. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you then. Take care.